This year is about pursuing something great. This year is about the dream that I've had for as long as I can remember. This year is not about showing up. It's about making a statement. Trust me when I say this. The time is now. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Time Is Now. We're going to do a little bit of a short sit-down video today. Now, I've kind of looked around on the internet and there's not loads of videos like this. So I've had a lot of questions about this, and I think I would like one of these videos when I was a little bit younger. And I basically want to say, like, how to pick a bodybuilding show and class. Like, how does one go ahead and pick those things? And I think the first and foremost place we should start is, like, what is your goal? What is the end goal? Do you have a burning desire to be an IFBB pro and you're in the UK? If so, Two Bros. Two Bros is the federation. That is the bodybuilding show that you choose. And then it's about picking a category, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So is the IFBB pro the goal? Yes, then Two Bros. If the goal is to potentially step your foot into just bodybuilding to try it, I would still say that you could enter Two Bros at a lower level, because they do have beginners, they do have first timers, along with a lot of other federations that also have those same categories. So I think that whatever federation you do end up choosing, there's probably going to be a category for you. There's first timers, there's beginners, there's you know, the people who have also got the same experience as you, and you can go into a category with them. I think that's very, very important to know. I think the next thing is probably, like, are you natural or not? If you're natural and you fancy, like, going to places where they don't test for performance enhancing drugs, then you're gonna have to just lie in that bed, because that's something that I did, and I don't have a problem with it. I was happy to you know, compete against people who were on, because that was my choice. So, you know, you can make that choice as well. And depending on that, you know, if you're someone who wants that even playing field, then you'd have to choose a natural federation. Natural federations like BNBF, there's the MPA, there is also the UK DFDA, I believe. So, you know, check out those natural federations. You can quite simply type in, like, natural bodybuilding federations and then type in the country that you're at. And, you know, it's a really, really big sport. It's not as big a sport as obviously the non-tested, just like everything else. And yeah, I think, like, those are the two big questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you want to compete with people on a fair playing field? Yeah, fair playing field. And do you want to compete at the highest level? You know, those are the two big questions that you need to ask yourself. If you are still in two minds about, you know, I would say if you want to be IFBB pro, then ignore the rest of this advice. But if you're just trying to get into it, if you're just looking to try and find the right thing for you, then these are some other things that you need to consider. So you've got to think about things like location. Like, you know, do you live in North Scotland and you've got to compete in South England, and you're not trying to be an IFBB pro and you're just trying to, like, experience it? It's probably not the best federation or show for you. So you can actually shop around to try and find something location wise. You have to consider the costs of getting there, costs of taking your family there. Everyone wants to bring their family with them. So those are two things that you need to consider. Once you establish, you know, okay, you don't mind traveling, you don't mind paying for it, you don't mind stepping your toes in, and then you want to think about, like, well, what class should I do? Well, let's say, you know, you're a young guy and you want to be an IFBB pro open bodybuilder, and you are nowhere near the standard. In my opinion, like, I either would not compete until I'm ready, or you'd compete in the lower end classes or the less muscled classes in almost like a stepping stone like fashion. So a lot of the men's physique guys, they're just not big enough for classic. So they'll go into men's physique until they get big enough for classic. Once they're big enough for classic and they start filling out their weight category, you know, they can do that. And if they don't have the classic lines, then maybe they can go into the 212, or they can go into the lower end of open. But just have some awareness as to how big you are and how good you look, and then go into compete. Like, you get a lot of guys, and I was probably one of them, and if I was naive as I was back then, I would continue to do this. I would turn up, think I'm really, really good, and I placed in a natural competition, and then I would turn up, try to be an IFBB pro, and I would look like a sore thumb. Very, very out of place. And you don't want to be one of those people who turns up to try and be an IFBB pro, and you're nowhere near the standard, because you actually look a bit unprofessional. You actually look a little bit like you don't know what you're doing, because you clearly don't have the self-awareness, you know, for that category. And I would say the same thing, like, if you're just too small for a bodybuilder, don't do bodybuilding. You know, you definitely You could find a federation that's a little bit lower level. You could find a class that's a little bit lower level, but you can't go up into that full-fledged if you're not there, in my opinion. So just have a little bit of self-awareness as to where that is. Now, I would also suggest that you maybe contrasting advice, but do the category that you want to do. If you love classic, go do classic until someone tells you that you can't and they're of a stature and a place. If you love men's physique, do men's physique. A lot of people ask me, why do you do men's physique when your legs are so good? I love men's physique. I think it's sick. It's actually the first thing that I saw that I was like, whoa. Beyond like watching Arnold and falling in love with bodybuilding like that, like the men's physique was the first one where I was like, damn, Jeremy Buendia, and I was like, that's why I want to do it. And I'm not off standard for classic just yet. And I'm gonna need a few more years until I can get there. So I think choose the category that you want to do, have some realistic expectations. If you're going to choose the category that's perhaps you're not suited to, if you're not a big open bodybuilder, don't go into the super heavyweights or whatever it is. Think about the location, think about the cost of this stuff. It does cost a lot. Think about your overall goal. That's the most important thing here. If you want to be IFBB Pro, you want to be looking down those IFBB Pro channels, NPC, 2 Bros in the UK, I think it's NPC everywhere else. And just making sure that you do follow the correct routes, because I do see people compete in PCA and they say, I can't wait to be on the Olympia stage. And I think, why are you doing the PCA then? Like, you need to get over to this federation because it's the only route in. And guess what? Bodybuilding is a sport you need time in. Bodybuilding is a sport you need to show your face in. So you want to do well, you want to show your face to the judges, you want to show your face to the people who organize things and ultimately be a figurehead and represent bodybuilding the right way. So that's like a little bit of an insight as to how I would choose a bodybuilding show. For me, it opened up very, very easily because the standard actually was a lot lower back then when I first started. So actually the guys who were winning pro cards were probably, potentially, I should say, natural. So I was like, oh, I could do it. And it wasn't until things changed and criteria changed and ultimately the sport progressed. Just like every single sport, people got better, people got bigger, people got stronger, people were smarter, and people did things a lot more efficiently. So now it's a little bit of a different game. Now I believe that you should go in at the tier that you're probably at and work your way up. And the path will be very, very open, because guess what? You may start in a lower show because you're not too confident with how you look, and you may win everything. There's guys who will go into the first timers because they've never competed before and they're a little bit nervous and they don't want to get embarrassed, and then they win the whole show. You might be one of those guys. So, the route to the top is very quick when you are when you have the genetics and the capability to be at the top, in my opinion, and the route opens itself for you. So, just make sure you're picking yourself at the right level to get in. And we'll leave that there, like short and sweet. It might not be short and sweet by this point, but just to kind of give you an insight as to how to pick a bodybuilding show. And we'll leave that there for today's episode. We'll see you guys soon. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Peace and love, everybody. Bye-bye.